Red is the fourth studio album by American singer-songwriter Taylor Swift. It was released on October 22, 2012, by Big Machine Records, as the follow-up to her third studio album, Speak Now. It was announced through Swift's live chat on August 13, 2012, in which she also revealed the album title and cover. 4 promotional singles were released in the month leading up to the album release, 3 of which debuted inside the top 10 of the US Billboard Hot 100. The album features collaborations with producers and guest artists such as Gary Lightbody of Snow Patrol and Ed Sheeran, and sees Swift experimenting with new musical genres. Swift completed the Red Tour in support of the album on June 12, 2014. Red received generally positive reviews, with music critics praising Swift's versatility as a musician and her experiments with new music genres, straying from her usual country sounds. Swift has received awards and nominations for Red. At the 56th Grammy Awards, Red was nominated for Best Country Album and Album of the Year, marking Swift's second nomination for Album of the Year at the Grammys, following her 2010 victory with Fearless. The album sold 1.21 million copies in its first week in the US, debuting at No. 1 on the Billboard 200 chart, the second highest debut for a female artist, behind Oops, I Did It Again by Britney Spears. It has also spent 16 non-consecutive weeks at No. 1 on Billboard's Country Albums chart as of mid-March 2013. Red became Swift's first chart topper in the UK, and also topped the album charts in Australia, Canada, Ireland and New Zealand. The album sold 1.89 million copies in its first 3 weeks, surpassing One Direction's Up All Night as the second biggest-selling album of the year in the US. According to the International Federation of the Phonographic Industry, Red had sold 5.2 million copies worldwide as of December 2012, making it the second best-selling album of that year globally, behind Adele's 21. Background and release. On August 13, 2012, Swift gave a live chat to over 72,500 viewers, in which she answered fan questions, previewed the lead single, We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together, and announced her fourth album's title as Red, as well as its release date. Swift also revealed the meaning behind her album's title. All the different emotions that are written about on this album are all pretty much about the kind of tumultuous, crazy, insane, intense, semi-toxic relationships that unregistered trademark they experienced in the last 2 years. All those emotions are spanning from intense love, intense frustration, jealousy, confusion, all of that are in my mind, all those emotions are red. You know, theory unregistered trademark s nothing in between. Theory unregistered trademark s nothing beige about any of those feelings. During the live chat, she also revealed that she wrote more than 30 songs for the album, of which she included 16 for the album, and expressed that dysfunctional relationships can provide a lot of inspiration. Contrary to her previous self-written album Speak Now, Swift enlisted the help of several of her favorite songwriters. In an interview with MTV News, the singer revealed that the album is interesting because each song stands on its own. It's this patchwork quilt of different sounds and different emotions, and I don't think anything on the record sounds like We're Never Ever Getting Back Together. She also previewed songs from the album on Good Morning America every Monday, beginning on September 24 until October 15. Swift performed on October 22 for the album's release, and the next day, she performed a live concert on the same show. According to the singer, she had spent over 2 years with the recording process, writing and preparation for the album. Sarah Barlow shot the album's cover, which shows Swift's face, particularly her red lipstick. The standard and deluxe versions of the album were released on October 22, 2012 in Italy, New Zealand, the United States, among others. A karaoke version of the album was also released on February 5, 2013 on the iTunes Store, which includes the instrumental version from all tracks of his standard version. Critical response: Red has received generally positive reviews from music critics. On Metacritic, which assigns a weighted average score out of 100 to reviews and ratings from mainstream critics, the album received a Metascore of 77, based on 23 reviews. Melissa Mertz of Entertainment Weekly gave the album A and wrote that Red finds her singing about walking directly into traffic, wading into quicksand and flirting with the kinds of jerks Kanye West might toast to, and closed the review saying that the album might be about flirting with danger. The Guardian was also very positive on the album, gave it 4 stars out of 5 and wrote, Red was allegedly inspired by her experience of love and its fast-paced, crazy adventures. How she's had time to open her door to such a parade of lovers good and bad, God only knows. John Dolan from Rolling Stone found some influences on the album such as Joni Mitchell and U2, rated it 3.5 stars out of 5 and said, her self-discovery project is one of the best stories in pop. When she's really on, her songs are like tattoos. Billboard gave a very positive review to the album, called it her most interesting full-length to date, and said that Red puts Swift the artist front and center with big, beefy hooks that transcend her country roots for a genre-spanning record that reaches heights unseen since Shania Twain's Up. Stephen Thomas Aliwin from Alma6 stated that although she can still seem a little gangly in her lyrical details, her relationship songs are too on the nose and she has an odd obsession about her perceived persecution by the cool kids. These details hardly undermine the pristine pop confections surrounding them. If anything, these ungainly, awkward phrasings humanizes this mammoth pop monolith. She's constructed something so precise its success seems preordained, but underneath it all, Taylor is still twitchy, which makes Red not just catchy but compelling. Robert Christgau praised the album by saying that he likes the fasty ones, and complimented that Begin Again, and Stay Happy and Hit Us Hard. Michael Galecki of the AV Club said lyrically, it's the same path Swift has walked since her 2006 debut, just deeper and a little darker. But musically, it's bigger and bolder than anything she's ever done in the pop world. However, saying it's magnificent at times, but it's also complicated and sometimes unfocused. He dismissed the duets as boring, however, praising State of Grace, and All Too Well as occasionally fascinating work. Spin positively said, whatever it is, this music is full of adult pleasures, even if the most explicit image Swift offers is of an ex-boyfriend sniffing her scarf because it smells like her. On Red the color of blood and lipstick and fire and southern dirt and hearts and conservatism and tractors and communism and sin, this last a word whose charged valence here might discomfit know-it-alls who would never use it without scare quotes Swift's too smart and tuneful to condescend to her contradictions. Or to yours. The Los Angeles Times praised the album by saying the versatility is the album's most striking characteristic, and by setting rural music alongside more urban sounds of the moment, Swift is arguably just responding to a pop world in which country singles might please her base, but certainly doesn't expand it. But that's the cynic's view, and Swift on Red has little time for cynicism. Rather, she's striving for something much more grand and accomplished. Slant magazine was critical, but said while songs like All Too Well and Treacherous prove how adept Swift is at expressing genuine insights into complex relationship dynamics, there are also a handful of songs that lack her usual spark. Still, if Red is ultimately too uneven to be a truly great pop album, its highlights are career-best work for Swift, who now sounds like the pop star she was destined to be all along. Accolades, Red was included on many year-end best of lists. The album appeared at the runner-up spot on Associated Press and Idolator, with the latter saying that Red showcased Swift abilities marvelously, in finely hewn details, the most varied production styles of her career and storytelling that remains as emotionally ass-whooping as any artist with her reach. John Caramanica of the New York Times also ranked Red number 2 on his top 10 albums list, stating that, Swift goes day-glow on the most unexpected moments of this album, her fourth and the first that stops pretending she's anything but a pop megastar. MTV ranked Red number 3, stating that Swift takes tremendous strides towards becoming a genuine artist, the kind equally adept at penning heartbreakers. The album appeared at number 5 on Billboard's Top 10 Best Albums of 2012, saying that Red will likely be remembered for its sonic risks, with the pop of We're Never Ever Getting Back Together, and the dubstep wobbles of I Knew You Were Trouble pushing the country star out of her comfort zone. The Daily Beast writer Marlo Stern ranked the album at number 7, calling it an uneven LP that nonetheless contains a diverse array of infectious tunes. While Glenn Gamboa of Newsday ranked the album number 6, stating that Taylor comes out as a full-fledged pop superstar. Red also ranked at number 10 on both the Salt Lake Tribune and HitFix. Rolling Stone ranked the album 31st on their album list. Songs from the album have received Grammy Award nominations. We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together was nominated for Record of the Year at the 55th Grammy Awards, but lost to Somebody That I Used to Know by Gotye and Kumbra. Begin Again received a Best Country Song nomination at the 56th Grammy Awards. Red also received nominations for Album of the Year and Best Country Album at the 56th Grammy Awards. Commercial performance, North America. Red was a huge commercial success. In the United States, Red became the fastest-selling album in over a decade after selling 1.21 million copies in its first week, and earned Swift her third No. 1 album on the Billboard 200. Red has the second highest first-week sum by a female artist, only behind Britney Spears' Oops, I Did It Again, which opened with 1.3 million units. Red had the biggest sales week in 2012 and outsold the top 52 albums in the Billboard 200 on its first week. It has also the biggest one-week sales for a country album, beating Garth Brooks' Double Live, which sold 1.085 million copies in 1998. Red sold 465,000 digital copies in its first week in the US, which is the second biggest after Lady Gaga's Born This Way. It sold around 1.459 million copies worldwide in its first week of sales. In its second week on the Billboard 200, the album remained at No. 1 and sold 344,000 copies. Next week Red held atop the Billboard 200 and sold a further 196,000 copies, which brought its sales to 1.749 million, thus ranking the third biggest selling album of 2012 behind Adele's 21 and One Direction's Up All Night. The album was dethroned by One Direction's Take Me Home on its fourth week. In its seventh week, Red climbed back to No. 1 on the Billboard 200, selling 167,000, and with that, Swift is now tied with Jay-Z and Whitney Houston for fourth most weeks at No. 1 on the Billboard 200 since Nielsen SoundScan began tracking in 1991. Swift held the Billboard 200 top spot the next 2 weeks, thus making Swift as the first artist since the Beatles in 1969 to log 6 or more weeks at No. 1 with 3 consecutive studio albums, following Fearless and Speak Now. Also, this is the third time that Swift has had the No. and NBPS 1 album in the last week before Christmas, which is traditionally the most competitive week of the year. She also achieved the feat with Fearless in 2008 and Speak Now in 2010. Red spent its 7th non-consecutive week at No. 1 in the sales week ending December 30, 2012, selling 241,000. This gave Swift a total of 24 weeks atop the Billboard 200 throughout her career, tying her with Adele as the woman with most weeks at No. 1 since SoundScan began tabulating the Billboard 200 in May 1991. Red finished 2012 as the second biggest album despite being out for only 2 months, selling 3.11 million. It makes the fourth time she is an album ranked in the year's top 3 sellers. As of July 2014, the album has sold 4,045,000 copies in the US. In Canada, Red ranks Swift's third No. 1 album as well, selling 93,000 copies on its debut week and has easily crossed the platinum certification in the country. With that sales, Red became the biggest one-week sales in Canada since Michael Bublé Copyright's Christmas moved 107,000 copies last Christmas season of 2011 and the biggest first-week sales since 2008. To date, Red has been certified triple platinum by Music Canada with shipments exceeding 240,000 copies. Europe and Oceania, Red was also commercially successful outside the United States. In the United Kingdom, Swift garnered her first No. 1 album with Red with sales of 61,000 copies on its opening week. In Australia, the album debuted at No. 1 and spent a total of 3 consecutive weeks at the top, becoming Swift's longest-running No. 1 album in Australia. Red has already been certified double platinum by the ARIA with shipments of 140,000 copies. In New Zealand, the album also became Swift's third No. 1 album, and has been certified platinum by the RIANZ worldwide. Swift set a new worldwide iTunes Store record for highest ever first-week album sales with 566,000 copies sold digitally around the globe. Later, this record was beat by Justin Timberlake's album The 20/20 Experience. The album has sold over 6 million copies worldwide. Promotion, singles. The album's lead single, We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together, was released on August 13 and has since become Swift's first No. 1 single on the US Billboard Hot 100. The song's jump from its debut position No. 72 to No. 1 was the result of a massive digital demand on the song. With 623,000 downloads, the song placed second among all-time best week sales singles, behind Flo Rida's 2009 hit Right Round. It stayed at No. 1 for 3 non-consecutive weeks, being displaced twice at the top, first by Flo Rida's Whistle, and second by Maroon 5's One More Night. The song stayed at the top 10 for 13 weeks and charted for a total of 24 weeks. In UK, it peaked at No. 4, giving her her first top 10 hit since Love Story, and the song became her first No. 1 song in New Zealand. As of December 2012, We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together has sold more than 3 million downloads in the US. Begin Again was released to the iTunes Store on September 25, 2012 as part of a countdown to the album release. A few hours after its early release to iTunes, it shot to No. 1, thereby becoming the first single to dethrone Psy's Gangnam Style in a week. The song sold 299,000 digital copies in its first week of release and debuted at No. 7 on the US Billboard Hot 100 chart dated October 4, 2012. It was later announced that the track would be serviced to country radio on October 1, 2012 as the second single from the album. The song became her 17th consecutive top 10 hit in US Billboard Hot Country Songs, but also tied with Fearless as her lowest charting single on the said chart, although it reached No. 3 on Billboard Country Airplay. I Knew You Were Trouble was released as the second international single from Red on November 14, 2012 in UK. In the US, it was released on November 27, 2012 as the third single. The song debuted at No. 3 on Billboard Hot 100 with 416,000 copies sold in its first week, Swift's second-largest first-week single sales. It became Swift's 14th top 10 hit and her 11th song to debut inside the top 10. With sales of 416,000 from I Knew You Were Trouble, Swift became the first artist in digital history to have 2 songs that debuted with sales of 400,000 or more copies. In its 11th week, it sold a massive sum of 582,000 in the US, making it the 4th biggest digital sales week of all time. It caused the song to re-peak at No. 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. I Knew You Were Trouble became a commercial success, selling over 3 million copies in the US and reaching No. 1 on Billboard Hot 100 Airplay and Billboard Pop Songs, and also reached a top 10 in 10 countries. 22 Inches was released as the 4th single from Red. It was sent to Australian radio on February 4, 2013. It was released in the United States on March 12, 2013. The music video was released on YouTube on March 13, 2013. The song was released in the United Kingdom on April 1, 2013. It peaked at No. and NBPS 20 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming the first single from Red to miss the top 10. As of May 2013, the song has sold 1 million copies in the United States. Red, the album's title track, was released to country radio on June 24, 2013 as the third country single. The song debuted at No. 6 on the US Billboard Hot 100 and at No. 2 on the Hot Digital Songs chart, selling 312,000 in its first week. It also debuted at No. 2 on the Hot Country Songs chart, behind Swift's We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together. As of May 2013, the song has sold 1 million copies in the United States. Everything Has Changed, which features British singer-songwriter Ed Sheeran, was released as the fourth international single as well as the fourth US pop mainstream single on July 16, 2013. The Last Time, featuring Snow Patrol-led vocalist Gary Lightbody, was later confirmed as the fifth international single and seventh overall from Red. A UK release was announced as of October 13, 2013, and it subsequently impacted UK contemporary hit radio on November 4, 2013. The release of the single coincides with the announcement of the dates for the European leg of her international Red tour. Promotional singles. During the 4 weeks preceding the release of Red, one track was released each week digitally on the iTunes Store after a preview of it had been heard on Good Morning America. The first of the 4 promotional singles is Begin Again, which was released digitally on iTunes on September 25, 2012. Red is the second promotional single off the album, and became available for download on October 2, 2012. Red debuted at No. 6 on the Hot 100 with sales of 312,000. I Knew You Were Trouble is the third promotional single off the album, and became available for download on October 9, 2012. The fourth and final promotional single is State of Grace, which became available for download on October 16, 2012. Each of them reached No. 1 on iTunes and the top 15 on the Billboard Hot 100, with I Knew You Were Trouble having the highest peak at No. 2 as Swift's 14th top 10 song. With sales of 416,000 from I Knew You Were Trouble, Swift became the first artist in digital history to have 2 songs that debuted with sales of 400,000 or more copies. Track listing, credits and personnel, credits adapted from AllMusic, technical and production, charts, certifications, release history, references. External links, Reddit Taylor Swift official site, includes lyrics of all tracks. Reddit Metacritic